Miami and Notre Dame are both making strong cases to be in the college football playoff. We'll start with Miami. Now, people will say it's kind of like a hollow victory, if you will. I don't know if it was. This was a dominant performance in every possible way. And you take into account, yes, 10-2, not playing in the ACC championship game, probably disappointing, especially when you take into account how talented this roster is and how good they were playing throughout most of the year. Yeah, they had a couple off days. They went out and they lost to Louisville by turning it over 4 times by 3 points. They went out and they lost to SMU where they had a roughing the passer call on 4th and 9. If that roughing the passer call doesn't happen, do they end up winning the game? Who knows? It's a hypothetical and it's not really worth talking about. But to have the most talented roster by a mile in the ACC and not to be playing in Charlotte this upcoming Saturday, it's got to be a real gut punch to Mario Cristobal and company, because their fate now lies in the hands of the College Football Playoff Committee, and that committee has not shown them a lot of love here in the first 3 rankings releases. But the combination of SMU losing to Cal, Virginia beating Virginia Tech, Duke defeating Wake Forest, that was a complex situation where Miami could possibly make it, but they needed Duke and or Virginia to lose the game. One or the other, and they would have been in. So just didn't happen for them. Now they are firmly on the, quote, bubble, right? Don't get that automatic bid. They don't get that 13th data point. So the College Football Playoff Committee is going to have to look at the eye test over some of the resume gaps. And frankly, right now, some of the metrics between Miami and Notre Dame, they are literally right next to each other on a lot of the metrics. You look at strength of record, strength of schedule. There's 2 spots between the two on strength of schedule, partly because Miami played a team that was ranked in the top 25 this past weekend. And then on the other side, Notre Dame's playing against a 3-9 Stanford. So Notre Dame has fallen back. Miami slid up. Now you have to wonder, will these 2 teams be in the same bubble, the same group that the College Football Playoff Committee chair has been telling us about for the last few weeks? Because if they are in the same group, because the metrics support that, then you start to talk about the head-to-head matchup. And of course, Miami won that game in the first game of the regular season. I think you can also look too at where Miami's at right now as far as injuries. They had several throughout the season. At least 7 starters missed time throughout the regular season. And yet, yes, they lost a couple games that they absolutely shouldn't have. But at the same time, that's been used in other teams' favor. Will it be used in Miami's favor? And their quarterback, too, Carson Beck, he's playing probably the best football of the season these last few weeks. Another very surgical performance. Cold weather. It was windy. It was breezy. He was an efficient player in the game, did not make mistakes, had 3 touchdowns, and threw for well over 250 yards. Malachi Toney has been one of the best freshmen in all of college football this season. Another ridiculous performance from him, 13 receptions in the game. He's constantly able to just move the chains, even threw a touchdown in this matchup. The guy's one of the best football players in the sport, and he's only a freshman. I think he's probably locked up freshman of the year. I believe that's the Sean Alexander Award. Yeah, Malachi Toney's probably locked that up with what he's done here throughout this season. And then defensively, probably the best defensive game of the year from Miami. This is a solid Pitt football team, and they just held them to 7 points. And they were completely overwhelming the offensive line throughout most of the ball game as well. So Miami made a statement in a big way in their performance by beating Pitt worse than Notre Dame beat Pitt the week before. And no one thought that was possible because Notre Dame crushed Pitt just a couple weeks ago. And people are texting me this too. This was a game that Pat Narduzzi, quote, cared about. Like, come on. I think he cared about the Notre Dame game too. But I understand the point that's been made from the Miami vantage point. Notre Dame was amazing as well last night. If you stayed up late enough, I did. I was all in last night. I was watching the game. The final score is not even close to as indicative as how dominant that game was. Jeremiah Love goes out, breaks a program record, been held for 30 years. 21 touchdowns now, has surpassed the single season record previously held by Jerome Bettis. If you're in the same company at running back with Jerome Bettis, pretty good place to be in. There was that scare, though, when he had the bruised ribs, did return, only finished with 66 yards, but either way, he's going to be fine and should be at 100% here in no time, assuming they make the college football playoff. Still love what I'm seeing from CJ Carr. think he continues to operate the offense very efficiently, did so again in this matchup. And they also showed you too, with Love being a bit banged up, they reminded everybody just how deep this running back core is. Because yes, we talk about Jeremiah Love. Yes, we talk about Jadarian Price. We don't talk enough about Aeneas Williams. Like Aeneas Williams is excellent as well. He has 83 yards on the ground and a couple touchdowns. So did Notre Dame punch their ticket? I don't know that for sure just yet. I think in all likelihood they did, but I cannot say with 100% certainty they'll get in the field just yet. I'll explain why when we talk about the playoff bubble here in just a minute. But they've won 10 straight games. Every single one of those wins has been by double digits. And I think they have pretty much removed any doubt about what this team is capable of when they're playing at the highest levels. The big conversation about Notre Dame is not necessarily whether they be in the field. I think they will be more than likely, but would they get a home game? I'm not sure they will. Not with the way things went with teams 5 through 8 this past weekend, and knowing that A&M is now joining that mix as well. So it's looking like right now for Notre Dame, a lot of the assessment with them is more about the argument being, quote, the best teams. I don't think anyone disagrees. Notre Dame is among the best teams in the sport. If you look at their FPI, their power ratings, they're number 3 right now in power ratings behind Ohio State and Indiana. So if you're going to use the argument of, well, who would be favored against who on a neutral field? Right now, Notre Dame would be favored against pretty much everybody not named Ohio State and Indiana. Pretty good place to be in. They are also 5th when it comes to game control. What is game control? Game control basically is a fancy word for eye test. They're 5th behind Ohio State, Oregon, Texas Tech, and Indiana. So they've been dominant, even with those 2 early season losses. Their strength of record, though, is not great. Their strength of record is 13th, which is obviously outside the 12 that would be in. That is the 4th among 2 lost teams, and actually behind Texas in strength of record argument. So that is a metric that has been used in the past, and their strength of record metric is not very favorable for the Irish. So I think they should feel really good about making the field, but I don't think at this point it's a complete lock